Alright, hello. If you are watching this video, it means you are one of our Patreons. And so thank you very much for your contribution. We're here with another patch breakdown with John Kammerer.
Nailed it.
Kammerer.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Half of Bleeps and Loops. Half of Tree Cathedral. Solo. Ohn Dāka. Part of the Untitled Beat Collective. Good friend of Modular Seattle and of the creator community. He's going to be doing a little patch breakdown for us. So you originally... Oh, say hello.
Hello. Hi.
Anyways, okay, so originally you played this similar kind of setup at the December Modular Nights, which was like the first Untitled Beat Collective show, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So and I used a lot of elements from that set and kind of took them and reworked them and put them into. It's basically the same patch with new pieces.
Yeah,
you know?
got it. So yeah, I guess we'll be less talking about like a specific patch and more about the techniques, because it seems like you've kind of used this same kind of setup and the same kind of like ideology and methods behind it for a few sets since then.
Yeah, and I mean this really the first time that I actually used a patch that was similar to this was back in July for the Lub Lasers Into the Bridge thing that was happening. I played at that at I think I went on at midnight or something, but and I the goal was, so I do all of my heavy lifting with composition in the DAW. And that's just where I'm the most comfortable. That's where I do everything for my sound design work, everything for the marching bands and other clients and stuff. So I'm most comfortable writing in Ableton. But I'm not comfortable performing with Ableton. I've never performed with Ableton in this way. I just don't know. It doesn't work for me as a performance tool.
Okay.
And I don't know why.
That's interesting because it was made for that, right?
It was made. It's literally called Ableton Live.
Yeah.
I know. And I don't know what it is. I think maybe I have a little bit of that sort of don't wanting to seem like I'm just checking my emails on stage type of mentality about it.
Totally. I feel you.
Which, I mean, even I understand that's not what's happening, but even I fall in the trap of if I see a laptop on stage, a little bit of me is
No, totally.
I kind of wish there was some hardware or something,
No, and I totally resonate with that because that's kind of part of why I switched to mainly doing modular performance, is because it's we know as the performer behind a laptop there is a lot going on.
Yeah. But
it is a completely different beast when we're just touching an actual instrument,
right?
Rather than moving pieces around on a computer screen.
Yeah. So I just think there's this weird divide between you and the audience that is a very similar divide that you get if, for instance, if I were to have. I try not to play with my synth like this on stage where it's tilted forward. If the audience is out there, I try to do that because all they're doing is looking at a black box, and that's really boring. It's the same thing as having an Apple logo flashing at you across the room or something like that. I think that part of the live performance experience is seeing strange grids of lights and tangled cables and just being able to be I don't know what the hell is happening, but I know something is happening. I can tell because when you did that, something changed. I think that's just a really important part of the performer audience interaction, which is something I've been focusing a lot on lately. Just which kind of leads me back into that show I did in July, where I wanted something that I didn't have to tend to so intensely. I wanted a patch that didn't necessarily require 100% of my attention all the time, because I wanted to explore performer-audience relationship a little more. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, I can't go to a show and just sit there, a show where I'm watching a performer. I can't go there and just be this is great music, I'm really enjoying this. I'm sure many people in this whole community have to sit there and be what are they doing? What are they, how are they performing? What are they performing? How do I feel about them? What are they doing? And something that I noticed is that DJs, while they might just sit there, okay, there was one show that really that changed it for me. One show that changed it for me, and that was Bank. I went and saw Bank when he came to what's the place below Numos? Doesn't matter. There's a venue. Barboza, yeah, he played at Barboza. Most of the time was him. I mean, he had a laptop, all right. It was off to the side,
Sure.
And most of the time was him up there like jumping, and and he had some lighting, and I just thought there, I had a great time, and halfway through I just thought, this motherfucker hasn't touched an instrument yet, not really, you know.
But the audience interaction was 10 out of 10.
Huge crowd. I was enjoying it. Everyone was clearly enjoying it. The energy was extremely high. And I was like, I want that, you know? But I don't want to get rid of this. I think this is so important.
So you're trying to find kind of the happy medium where you can feel like you as a musician are doing enough on an instrument.
Yes.
While still being able to engage.
Yeah. And that's tough, man. That's tough to find that balance, especially when you're committed to doing this, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, if I didn't care so much about having this stuff and making this my method of performance, then I think that I would have a much happier and easier time making music and performing music. But I convinced myself that, and I am convinced that this is the way that I'd like to do it. So the first step was sticking with my being comfortable working in the DAW, using something like the Octatrack, which I have, like many people, a wonderful love-hate relationship with. You know, this is the most complex thing, but I think it can do anything that I want it to do if I just beat my head against the wall for a little bit on it.
Yeah.
But taking this and using it as my master brain to control everything, freeing me up to do things like, eventually, I've been working a lot on beat matching. I suck at beat matching. I'm not a DJ, I've never DJ'd. But when I saw Daedalus play, he was using this STS.
Yeah, he just DJs off the STS. He just has different songs loaded up in different files.
Yep.
And then just uses the rest of the modular to manipulate those sounds.
And that's kind of I went that direction with it for that first show. But I'm not a skilled beat matcher. And so I had some support from, I had the Octatrack triggering some things for me to kind of give me a little network support.
Yeah.
You know, and actually when I first put this patch together for the Mod Night show, I originally had it set up to the Octatrack would trigger the STS, but it wasn't working in the grand scheme as I went on. So I ended up taking that out and instead loading it up with samples that are relative to certain parts based on the color matching. So it follows, red is the first bank or white is the first bank here. And so I know that if I go to that bank, I can go to the color, play a sample, and it'll very likely work pretty well, you know?
Got it. So you do, let me make sure I'm tracking, because this is some good heavy level shit, and I love it. I love it. High level shit, not heavy level. It's not heavy.
It's pretty heavy.
It's high level shit. So you're making tracks on the DAW in Ableton, and then you're putting full tracks into the Octatrack.
Yes, but I'm chopping them up first. So
into sections or by stems?
Into sections, because I want control over, because what I do next after I take this, I leave big gaps in what I'm writing. If I'm writing something for a live performance, which most of the songs that I write typically begin their life as an intention to play live, and then I go back and I'm like, hey, that really hit when I played. This is a good one. I'm really sticking with it. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna turn it into a very highly produced song to release. You know, something like that. So I take these tracks, I write them, and I write them with big gaps missing. Whether it's gonna be filled by samples or synth, I don't know at the time. But later, then I go in and I write in, typically using the Octatrack. I mean, I'm pretty reactive. You know, I'm not a very I'm not the kind of person to sit down and start writing something and be like, I have an idea, and go and put it down. Typically I start just messing around with stuff, and then something will stick, you know. So I'm a really, really reactive composer in that way. So I go to the Octatrack and I use the arpeggiator. I use all the locks and stuff, and I rotate the sequence around and do all this, and all of a sudden something, I'm like, yeah, that's it right there, you know. So I write in the DAW, I leave gaps, then I go to my synth. But after I've written everything in the DAW, I chop it all up into this last set, the full length one, the hour long one I did last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago. It ended up being I don't know, what's What's 16 times 6? What's 16 times 6, Josh?
Shit. Oh god.
It's like 90
I
something.
literally have to like add it up in my head. I'm not gonna do that.
Don't do that.
Anyways.
I think it's like what, like 80 or 90 something. It's like,
sure.
like different sections, something like that.
It's definitely more than like. It's at least 30.
Yeah,
it's at least.
It's
30.
more than 30 and less than 500.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I think it's about 80 or 90 different segments. I went in there and I tried to, and I actually put each of these all individually into the Octatrack, and then I went back through, determined what points would be a good looping point, and I went and I threw everything into the arranger, went through, figured out where the looping points would be, and then once I had my loop points, once I knew what was happening, then I went over here and I started composing on the synth, and then I wrote all my synth voices and put those in after the fact. So there was one difference. There was one point where at the end of a very very produced track, I kind of wrote this tag ending that was just a bunch of arps. And what I like doing is I like taking in Ableton. I like taking the Cthulhu X for Cthulhu plugin, which is like a chord and arp plugin. I take that and I take Scalar, which I suck at writing chords. But so I'll take like some weird chords, record them out, move them around to where I change them, and finally have a chord progression. Run that through Cthulhu, get really cool arps, and then I take it and I put it on the Octatrack using the live record feature. So like I'll just like press play. It's probably a better way to do this, but this is the way I do it. I press play on here and I press play on my computer at the same time. It always works. It almost always matches up. And if it doesn't, I can just shift it around, like 1 or 2 steps. But then I just record the MIDI out, and then it's just like there on my synth. And now that I have it on my synth, the reason why I like to do this is because I can use the arpeggiator on the Octatrack. I can quantize it to a certain key, and then I can transpose whatever I recorded from my DAW. I can transpose the range and the actual like sequence itself, so I can throw weird different chord progressions in there live. And that's kind of why I don't just like keep it on a computer. Someone would be like, "Well, why do you take the extra step of putting it on the Octatrack?" Well, because I like to mess with it live. It gives me that musician autonomy that I want.
So interesting. You're kind of blowing my mind right now, because you do. Like, I'm just in awe of everything I'm hearing, because you do everything so fucking backwards.
I know.
Like
I know, man.
Like 99% of people would say,
"Why?
I start here. I start in the modular. I start on the Octatrack. It's clocked to Ableton, and I record everything in Ableton, and then I mix and arrange and whatever in Ableton." But you're doing literally the opposite. You're pulling from Ableton and then bringing it out here.
If we really want to go back to like genesis of ideas, like I said, like I'm really reactive with this stuff. Honestly, a lot of my like ideas do come from the synth, where I'll sit there and just mess with the synth a little bit, and then I record that in, and then I flesh it out in Ableton, and then we get into the whole thing. So it's like it starts with the synth a lot of the times, goes to the DAW, goes back to the synth, and then if it's good enough, it goes back to the DAW for like finishing, essentially.
Wow,
you know?
That's so interesting. Because I mean, I don't know about most people, but I definitely think in terms of A to B. But yours is very cyclical.
How can you think of, you use this stuff, how can you think of A to B?
You're right. Wow. You're kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Well, this whole thing really kind of actually, so I was trying to do this, I tried to do it back at the December show, but I was missing a few pieces that really locked it in. And for me, one piece basically, and that was this Polyend Preset.
Okay.
I don't know why. Like, I knew about it for a long time. I knew about it right when it came out. I just didn't really think about it very much.
Yeah, I know about it, but tell me what it does.
Oh my god, it is amazing. Like, I love this thing. So how I have it currently set up, it has one CV input, which you can tell it to do whatever. Basically, the CV. Okay, no, it does one thing. The CV input advances the pattern, right?
Okay.
And you can tell it to either accept a CV voltage to change it or a gate.
Okay.
Which is great. Like I had two options there. So what I decided to do was I decided to set to CV. That way I could use a channel on my Octatrack to set the correct voltage so that when I am on, so let's just go like currently I'm on C16 on my scene C16 or pattern C16.
Okay.
And this is on bank, that's the one thing I have to change the bank manually. This is on bank C or bank 3 pattern 16. You can see if I go to 15, and press play, it switches right there. And if I go to 14, right? And the reason why I didn't just use gates to advance is because for rehearsal purposes, obviously, like what if I wanted to go back 3 steps? I have to like go in here and press that and then let it advance. And then once I wanted to go back to the beginning, you know what I mean? So like for rehearsal purposes, it was much easier for me to just put the voltage in. And that way, no matter where I skip to or what I jump to, it'll tell it to skip to the right preset. And
okay, so then what is each preset doing? Like when you're advancing a preset, what is that changing up here? Because I see the polyend is going out to various places on the main system.
So I have it going out to the, there's a few that I didn't get time to work in. I originally had them. There's a few empty spots here. But what it's doing is it's going to the delay, dry, wet, reverb, dry, wet, my envelope time on my Zadar, the envelope warping, which just changes the shape of it, just the shape of the envelope.
Yeah.
My cutoff for my voice on my synth. It changes the pattern, I don't even know what to call this, the delay, the left-right delay. So I can sit here and turn this, and you can see it'll make it like a longer delay and a shorter delay for each one. And I have the delay feedback, and this is interesting. For the show 2 Thursdays ago, my MIDI to CV converter was broken.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to use the Octatrack to sequence this synth. So I actually had the output of this one going to my Stilson hammer, and I was using this preset to change the presets of the Stilson hammer so that I get the right arpeggios on this synth here. So yeah, that's basically what that was doing. And then I had this other output running and stopping the Stilson hammer. But once I got the new, I also got the Poly 2, I got rid of those two and never replaced them with anything. Right. I really could have though. I keep saying that I kind of want a second preset. Like it's amazing. I mean,
this thing, amazing. Just from that short description, this thing sounds pretty insane. It's like this really complex like matrix sequencer.
And you can actually set it up to be a sequencer itself too. Like I had originally, you know, I mean, you can just like run through all 12 of all of these, and it's a 8 octave or 8 volt sequencer, which is really cool. 8, yeah, which is amazing. I mean, it's just like I don't know. Oh, sorry, 10 volts. So it goes to the 10 volts, which is great because some of my stuff doesn't sound like the Trident is, you know, pretty crazy. It can accept up to 10. A few other things can too.
Okay. So. You mentioned the Trident.
Yes.
That actually brings me to kind of what I was going to ask. We spent a lot of time talking about like kind of like the ideas and the method behind this, but I'm curious as to what sounds you have going on here and what sounds you have going on here, and then just kind of how
you mean the actual
those ideas
breakdown part.
Yeah, well, no, but you know, it's good because we have the way you think and how you make it all happen, and kind of the method you use for composing the sound and performing it. But now I just kind of want to see how that's applied to various sounds around your system.
Yeah. Okay.
So kind of explain your system a little bit.
So the Trident is my main voice in this system.
Okay.
And I typically use the Trident differently. I typically use these top 2 voices. It's a 3-voice oscillator. I typically use the top 2 as independent voices. I mean, it's actually polyphonic, which is really nice. And then I keep this bottom voice as like the modulator. It's got this really cool zing mod where it's like a synced ring modulator.
Okay.
And it sounds wild. I mean, it sounds like animals and like birds and shit. It's crazy. I love it. It's the coolest oscillator. I love it so much. But this time I'm only using a single voice out of it because I didn't have time to work in my second one.
Sure.
Normally that would be this, but my Trident was getting repaired, and so I put the mini brute in here. But normally I just use these 2. Anyway, so this is my main sound source. This is my main voice on here as far as the synth goes, and I have the Polyend Poly 2, which is running out to all the modulation on the 3rd oscillator, and I can use CC messages from the Octatrack, and I can like parameter lock CC messages so that my Poly 2 will set the modulation to the exact sound that I want. So basically,
interesting.
Yeah.
Can we hear? Are we able to hear just the trident?
Yeah. Let me see here. Maybe. if I'm on a patch that let me find a pattern that actually has it on here.
Sure.
Oh, you know what? Pattern A1 I believe does, which I did not use much in my show.
So this is the trident.
That's the trident right there.
Okay.
Okay. And
that sounds nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice sound. So in here I don't have any modulation steps, so I'm just gonna turn these knobs here, and you're gonna be able to hear the sound change a little bit. I think. Oh, you will if I have set up. Quality content.
You can edit this.
There we go. All right.
So are you sending CC messages?
Yeah.
Polyend 2.
Yeah. And I guess in this register it's not having a huge effect. So that's the great thing about it is that oh, no kidding. No kidding. Alright. There we go.
Okay, nice.
Should not do anything to make it quieter right now. But that's not being filtered. That's literally just
the oscillator.
The oscillator.
Wait,
yeah.
so are you running this through anything, or is this going straight out to your mixer?
It's not going straight to my mixer. No, I actually have. I mean,
So
it's being filtered, but those, but not.
But those changes.
Those changes weren't the filter. Yeah.
That was just the trident by itself. That's interesting. Wait, so is it just 3 oscillators? I mean,
it's just
3 oscillators.
Yeah.
But so it's not full voice. It's just the oscillators.
What do you mean by full voice? So there's no
like
there's
full voice.
no filter.
Like, this is a full voice. This is like an envelope.
No, it's just oscillators.
Okay,
It's just oscillators with these crazy
But just because all the different options, it's serving as like a quote unquote.
It's a complex oscillator. You know, it's like the CSL or anything like that.
Sure.
Full disclosure, I didn't use this modulation a ton throughout this whole set because at times it can just make it quieter as opposed to changing the.
And you're trying to change the timbre, the sonic quality, not exactly the.
Right. Yeah. If we slow this down, take this to the envelope up here. So yeah, see, sometimes it just makes it a little quieter.
Yeah.
I've gotten some really wild sounds out of it before.
No, for sure.
But
wait, so how is this being processed then? Because it sounds like there's reverb, there's delay? Question mark.
There's no delay right now. There's just reverb. Yeah. So we just have reverb in here. But if I ever want delay, I just it's really easy. I don't have to I like having this. What are you
using as your reverb?
Just a disting right now.
Oh, okay.
It's just a disting, yeah. I need to save some space, and I can't buy an FX8 yet for some reason. Totally. I think there's not in stock, but once I will, I'm gonna get one of those FX8s, man. Disting reverb sounds okay, but I use the Chronoblob for my delay. And,
best delay.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
I will go to the grave saying the Chronoblob 2 is the best delay in your rack.
I love it.
It's pretty damn good.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Yep. Oh yeah, I love the tape effects. They're so sick. Although I wish you could change that parameter with a gate or trigger.
That'd be cool.
That'd be killer.
That'd be really nice.
Because I'd love to be able to just send like a random gate to it, like, to just switch it
every once in a while.
Yeah. Because I don't want to do it myself. I got other shit to do.
I was experimenting with running LFOs to my CCs on the Octatrack. This is for an ambient set. I was running the LFOs to CCs and taking the CC to CV output and running those to the Chrono Blob.
Jeez, yeah.
And it would be like every once in a while, it would add like a nice slight warble to it.
Yeah.
And then it would just be like,
no, exactly.
all of a sudden,
yeah.
It was really cool.
I love that. Okay. So that's the Trident.
Yeah. Basically.
What other sounds do you got? Because obviously there's more than just the Trident. Although that by itself already sounds huge.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's a fat oscillator.
So as far as a synth voice goes, I'm taking my microbrute and I'm running it into my envelope follower here.
Okay.
And that way, that was just a mixer routing choice, but also I really wanted to. So this is interesting. I wanted the best of both worlds. I wanted to have the microbrute go through these effects because I actually don't really like the effects in the Octatrack that much. I don't think they're very, I know, right? There's a lot of people that
no one from Elektron sees this.
I know, right? But everyone seems to really love them. I've never gotten too attached. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's just
my
preference, man.
I used to have a dig attack, and I didn't really dig the effects on the dig attack either.
But when you have Chrono Blob,
yeah.
You know? Come on, when you have a distinct reverb.
When I purged, my Magneto got purged, but my Chrono Blob stands the test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I wanted the effects that were in my case because I wanted to be able to control them with the preset, right? I mean, I could P-lock and whatever, but I just like this better.
Sometimes the answer is simple as that.
Yeah,
I like it better.
I like it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did.
I don't need a reason. I just like it.
So I ran it into my preamp here, and I took the output and I malted the output, and one of them runs off to this message. I'll explain
to
in a second.
Another malt.
I'll explain it later.
Oh,
all right.
Geez.
Yeah, I know. And this one just goes directly out. So this is my dry. I can actually have.
So you have basically two versions of the signal.
Right. Yeah. So.
This is dry microbrute.
No, this is not a dry microbrute. If I were to pull this, that'd be dry microbrute, right? Or I suppose I could, turn this down. That's just dry microbrute in here. Because sometimes I just didn't want like the bass to come through with all the reverb and everything. And I wanted to have the best of both worlds, like I said.
Now this is interesting. The way you're using that quadrat, it's like.
It's essentially just a submixer
for the effect. That is
before
interesting.
The effect. It's a pre-effect submixer.
You're basically using that as just a big dry wet knob.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, in the case of the microbrute. No, in the case of the Trident and the Morphagene.
No, right, yeah. Right. I'm talking strictly about the microbrute.
Just for the microbrute.
So yes. It sounds like, since this is a patch breakdown, I kind of want to dive into this because I'm actually very curious about this.
Break it down.
So it seems like you're so you're malting the signal. Of the microbrute. One of them is going to the mixer.
One just goes out.
And one of them is going to this other malt. And this malt is going to a bunch of different effects. And then those effects are getting routed here and then summed output.
No.
Damn.
Close. These two things are out of order. So this one's just going out. This one goes to this malt. This malt goes to two different directions. One is into the Morphagene, and one is into the Quadrat. Now, the reason why I did this, and I could have, but the thing is that I wanted Morphagene through my effects too. So, the only way to do that was to malt before the Morphagene and then submix after the Morphagene, but before the effects.
Okay,
and that was a little weird to figure out.
No. So, kind of related question.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to methods and ideology. Because that is a bunch of really complex signal routing that I know that I would never have thought of or come across during my patching. And so I'm curious, when you approach a patch, do you kind of sit down and just kind of fuck around willy-nilly, or do you think like, oh, I want to achieve this, how do I achieve it? And then do you think through all the different steps to get there, or do you just very?
It is almost certainly more of the second way, where I want to achieve something.
Okay.
I figure it out. I almost never fuck around willy-nilly on my synth, which is a shame, and I really should more, you know?
No,
but it's usually because I'm working towards something, right?
Totally.
And in this case, I had this really complicated routing that I wanted to do, and the Morphagene was a last-minute thing. I wanted the Morphagene in there, and but I didn't know quite how, you know? And I tried putting the Morphagene just into the mixer, you know, like a normal freaking person. Like, I'm just take the Morphagene out. But I was like, nah, it sounds dry with everything else, right? Like, it just sounded too dry. So now I had to figure out this other way where I can still get dry microgroup, wet microgroup with effects, and microgroup going through the Morphagene that also goes through the effects without feeding back. And that was the problem, is that I couldn't work around, for a while, I couldn't work around the Morphagene feedback. Because I was, for a while, taking the output of this, multing it, sending one out, and sending one to here, but then trying, I was like, it's feedback, I'm like, it's not obvious, obviously.
You never want to do routing like that with your main mixer.
No.
It never works.
So that's an obvious, an obvious issue with that. But that was my solution, it's basically,
Okay, wait, so the microgroup's going to the Morphagene.
Microgroup's going to the Morphagene.
I want to hear some Morphagene shit. Show me some Morphagene.
So the Morphagene I currently have set up from my PAMs up here to automatically record every 8 bars, or every 4 bars, something like that.
Yeah.
The playback, so I had the playback in this slower one, which just alternates, like when it's recording, it's not playing, and when it's not playing, it's recording.
Sure.
But earlier I switched this to a faster clock. It seemed to kind of keep things a little more rhythmically, like before the second or to last show or something, I switched that around. So... Really exciting.
Ooh. So it's just constantly recording new material and then spitting out variations of that material.
So whenever I need something like interesting, I come in here, and I also have this hooked up to CCs. All the modulation is from the CC messages on here.
Okay, coming from Polyend 2.
Coming from the Polyend 2, right? So if I wanted to, I could turn the LFOs up and just have those be in sync in time modulation. So yeah.
Okay, so I don't know much about the Morphagene, but it is very fascinating to me because it seems like it's kind of complicated, but at the same time it's pretty easy to spit out like these really beautiful passages.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just curious, like, I don't know, how do you navigate the Morphagene? And a slightly more specific question: is it easy to keep it in pitch with everything? Because I know a lot of other samplers.
No. So that's the thing, is that I sort of let the Morphagene do its own thing. I really do. I have tried to control the Morphagene, and then I gave up and I bought an STS. Right?
Okay,
that's
got
why
it.
I have both. That's
okay.
exactly why I have both.
So the Morphagene is just for the random crazy shit that
Morphagene does live sampling amazingly, and it spits out some of the stuff you would just never think that could come out.
Right, but sometimes you need to know exactly what's coming out.
Right, but the STS, I have not locked in with it in a live recording situation, right? It's not, if I sit and think about it, I can record samples and be like, now I have this sample. Live, I don't want that. I want to be able to throw stuff in, rip it back out again.
Well, I actually used to have an STS.
Yeah?
And one of my favorite patches that I've ever done, favorite performances I've ever done, I used the STS and I did a lot of live recording.
Really? It's just something I've not dived into.
I had a sequence going into my STO, and then I was just, constantly changing which sample I was on, and then just recording new passages of that sequence while also changing the sequence. So I had a bunch of loops of the sequence.
That's actually really fascinating.
Yeah.
That kind of turns it into a
Live
little bit
looper.
of what I'm doing with some elements of the Octatrack, where I'm snatching little bits of the audio, and then I can switch over to it and blast from the past, just mix in something that happened previously.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It's cool. But it's not like the Morphagene, where the Morphagene you totally transform the sound. It will literally just spit out the sound I recorded.
Right.
You can change the start and the length and all that, but
Yeah, as far as like a real-time mangler type situation goes, like I like the, Morphagene obviously, but my goals for the STS were different. They were different, but they were also like opposite to the Morphagene. I got them because they're so opposite of each other.
Okay,
I feel like.
so then wait, actually, now that we've gone into this tangent, this whole conversation has just been one big tangent, but I love it. Show me what's coming out of the STS.
Okay.
Because I kind of want, because now I've heard a little bit of Morphagene, but I kind of want to hear.
It might not sound great with.
That's fine.
Let's just. STS. Oh my goodness, it's not on.
Oh.
I think I need to plug it back in. Oh, that's right. I took that cable out last night.
But then you left it in your case.
Yeah, I had to give Michael a cable, and I forgot it.
Oh my god. Fucking Michael, dude.
Sorry,
fucking
man.
Michael Vodder, dude.
Sorry, Michael.
Okay.
So anyway, I guess just take my word for it that all that's happening here is, man, it's really fascinating. Actually, both elements of this are detached, so I can just talk about it. All right.
Sure.
The STS goes into my crossfader, which for most of this show, I was really just keeping on the one
so
side.
You have two channels in the STS, one channel going into each channel. Okay.
And that's just going out to the panharmonium input. Okay?
Wait, okay, sorry.
Right, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Another tangent.
Yeah.
That's a really big module for a crossfader.
Yeah, but like I mentioned earlier, I want to try and work with the beat matching stuff a little more. Okay. That's kind of like, we need a crossfader for it.
Right,
know?
But like, what are there any special features on this crossfader? Because
it is
it's big
a crossfader.
Okay, great. I was just wondering because
you can turn the volume up and down.
Okay.
No, there's nothing special about it. It's a CV crossfader as well.
Great. Okay. Anyways,
yes,
sorry. Go ahead. Out of your crossfader.
If you were to, here's the thing. If you were to say, hey, take one thing out of your rack forever, it would be that crossfader, right? Like it does take up quite a bit of space. But on the other hand, it's also a submixer. For a while I was mixing down both channels of Morphagene into one before I got this whole setup.
And I bet you can also probably use it for CV too.
You can, yeah. You got this little audio CV switch here.
Okay.
Right.
All right. It's a little more justified now.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
So
out of your crossfader.
Yeah. So again, I didn't use this as much as I probably should have for these past shows, but what I have here is a chain going from here to the crossfader into the panharmonium down here, which is also unplugged for now. Sorry, I know.
But what does it do?
It's a resynthesizer. Okay. So it takes, I wish it wasn't unplugged because it's really cool, but it takes any audio in and tries to replicate it with oscillators.
No, that is fascinating.
It is fascinating, and I really wish it wasn't unplugged. But
I feel like Rossum
Electro Music.
I feel like I've been kind of sleeping on their modules.
Man,
but
until recently I was too.
Yeah.
They have some really good ones. They have this like Linnaeus filter that looks fascinating, man. It's so cool. It also their stuff is also very, very sciencey. Like this is a spectral or mutating spectral resynthesizer. It's like ultra nerd. The reason why I got this, actually, the whole reason why I got this is because in my studio back there, well, I have my French horn right here, and in my studio I have a mute that goes into my French horn.
Okay.
And that mute, it's a silent brass mute. What it's really meant to do is it goes into this little what do they call them? Belt, pouch, whatever. Body pack. It goes in a little body pack, and then you're supposed to plug headphones in, and that way you can practice your French horn in a hotel room without disturbing anyone.
Yeah.
What I do is I take the output of it, instead of putting the headphones, I plug it into my synth.
And you put it through that thing.
And if I put it in through the resynthesizer, then I can literally take my French horn and use it as an interface to play a synthesizer. Because this can go down to a single oscillator. So I can sit there and essentially turn my French horn into a keyboard, into any kind of interface for the synth. That's the goal eventually. I've not worked with it very much yet, but I know it works. And eventually I'll be able to get up there on stage and do synth solos while playing my French horn, which is my main instrument.
You might be one of the most ambitious synth performers I've met, but I like it. I definitely don't have that much ambition, but I'm happy you do, because that's dope as hell.
It's just another way for me to do more on stage, like we were talking about earlier.
Totally.
It's another thing that I know about, that when I found this panharmonium, I was like, that's it. Like that's the thing. And I'm 90% convinced that it's for me. You know, I'm not like 100% yet. But really what it comes down to is just how accurate I can make it work for me, which seemed pretty good when I was testing it the other day. But for right now, all I was doing was taking the samples and resynthesizing them. Even then, I wasn't doing very much of it because it was kind of throwing a bit of a wrench into the overall like produced sound, because it's really hard to sometimes like on the fly. It has a filter here where you filter in, like you focus the synthesizer in on the fundamental pitch, right? So basically what it does is when I have it set to one voice, one oscillator, it finds the strongest harmonic and replicates that with a sine wave or a saw wave. And then if I have two voices, that second voice finds the next strongest harmonic. Next, all the way up to 33 voices. You can actually perfectly reproduce like human speech and really like any sound with like 20 oscillators. Even with six oscillators, you can tell it is me speaking, not just a human, but like me. It has my timbre of voice, my cadence, my everything with 6 oscillators. So with 33, it's incredibly precise. It's 33 harmonics, right? Leading up, that's just like, it's fascinating, you know? Anyway. Bradley's laughing. So,
it's fucking crazy. Okay, wait.
But anyway, to pull that back around, I was having a little bit of a hard time getting the filter, like when I switch to a new sample, it'd be a different sound, right? And like I have to find that area in the filter range, right? Like so if I have like a female vocal in one, a male vocal in the next, that's a whole different thing. And I didn't have time on stage to really like hone in on that, you know? Totally. So I didn't use it very much. I mostly just kept it at the dry and just ran samples through it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is crazy. It's dope. Now, I kind of want to hear things together.
Okay.
Because, you know, I'm just play me something.
Okay.
Play me something.
Some of this stuff
utilizing these various
right. So some of this stuff is going to be like just tracked, because I had some just track music in here, which I was using a lot of the Octatrack recently.
Would it be possible for you to just like start with just tracks in the Octatrack and then just kind of add different things in, just so I can kind of know what's what?
Yeah. Let me see what we got here. Okay, so this seems to be a just track thing. Make sure that I'm on the right bank. And
it's so nice that you just have to change this one thing and then this is all set.
It's really great. Yeah.
This is kind of a game changer.
It feels like it. I have never gotten a module where I so instantly understood it and also felt that it made a huge difference. You know, it was really easy to get and just made a difference. It's perfect. All right, so let's see what we got here.
Hanging out with you because I always get fucking gassed.
I try to buy things too. The thing is, like, I don't buy anything unless I sell something. Like very, very rarely.
Literally, this entire conversation, I'm like, what can I sell?
Yeah.
What can I sell
because here's the thing. My synth doesn't go outside of this case. Like, I'm not gonna get a bigger case. You know, I got this little guy down here, but I already have something. I already have something. Yeah, I just need like a satellite control case. Yeah. So
okay.
Anyways,
hit me with something. So this is just all track.
This is just track right now, which I'd be resampling.
Yeah.
Too. And I don't know what this is going to sound like. Usually I put this knob down here so that when the synth does come in, it's not jarring.
Totally.
So what is this? Okay.
So that's the microbrute.
That's the microbrute. One thing I didn't actually mention is that I have the microbrute going into one channel of the Morphagene and the Trident going into the other channel.
Fantastic.
So now when I take the stereo output over here, I can actually have independent control over which voice I hear from the Morphagene too. So it's like I have 2 Morphagenes essentially. But it's all the same control, dude. But you know.
Your big brain routing over here.
Sometimes this thing is a little hard to like I would only throw the Morphagene in at like very, very specific points, you know?
Well, that was some nice variation there.
There we go. Throw that in there. And that just allows me to, for longer sets, you know, I can just like rest on a loop for a while, mess with all this stuff. If I wanted to, I'd come into my Octatrack. Oh yeah, done that. And just like mess around with the transposing and the range of my arpeggiator, stuff like that. All right, let's go on to the next one here. I have no idea when it's gonna change, so it will change when it's ready to change.
Yeah.
You know? So we can see as soon as we're gonna go to B16 and just switch. Okay. Now we got some of the delay. I have the delay up here.
That's so sick. So because you have the Polyend preset, when a change happened on here, now
He went to exactly
everything else.
The whole thing changed. I gave me the right effects. It gave me, and also
sick.
because I have the Poly 2, the Octatrack, when it changed that, it put this into the right sound. It put this into the right movement, things like that.
That's so fucking dope.
That's basically is like I'm just trying to get this to the point where let me see here. Let's go there instead. I'm gonna skip forward a little bit. I don't have 30 hands, right? And I want my music to sound a certain way. That's the whole thing. Is that like I'm kind of not okay with things unexpectedly happening on stage, and I think that's I know. So this is why I'm finding workarounds. I think that's my like classical music background that's coming through. You know?
Totally. I feel that. Wow.
So on this one, on the first pass through, it's just this, and now, oh right, we have the switch banks here. One thing just getting around. There we go. So now I switched the bank, and now this is the right.
This is crazy. This is
great, right? I'll put that in there so next time it comes in, it's something. Okay, just kind of messing around with it a little bit there. Moving on. I'm not in the right part to like throw any samples in, not that I could anyway, but
yeah. Dude,
there
this
we go.
is like really.
So I'm just really on this part. I think what I was doing on stage was I was like throwing that in there and like there we go.
With the envelope.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was a really fun thing to do. I would just switch back and forth. Sometimes these two things would complement each other. Like I said, I kind of had to rewrite some stuff because I got the Poly 2 before my second of the 3 shows that I played this at. Not counting the one in December, of course, because that was long before I had this. But so I had to kind of rewrite the synth parts and put them on the Octatrack and take them off the Stilson, you know, in a way. Which was, in a way, a bit of a blessing, because this thing was, I love the Stilson Hammer, like, it's an amazing sequencer, but it's not, like, when I'm playing this kind of music on stage, it's not quite as precise as I want it to be, you know? On the other hand, it is a little easier to get my hands on it and, like, make cool stuff. So, because of the preset, it was immediately snapping to the right preset on the Stilson Hammer.
Yeah.
So it did work really well, you know, and I actually did assign some of these assignable CV knobs to create variation stuff, much in the same way I would use CC parameters and the arpeggiator on the Octatrack. So very similar, you know. So it wasn't like a concept change. It was just a gear change.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so fascinated by all of this. Like I'm floored with how you were able to make this all sound so tight and like so cohesive. And
it's really, 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 like, it's a huge focus for me. I just need, like, because I produce these tracks that are going to sound the same way they're going to sound every time. And I don't want all of a sudden something like being like, just coming out. Cause I had that happen so many times when playing this kind of music, where it's just like, oh, now I'm like reining stuff in. It's obvious that like I made a mistake on stage.
Yeah.
And if it's not obvious, then it shakes me,
No,
and
for sure. And part of it, it's as we were talking this whole time about audience interaction, but at the same time, it's like you need to create an environment that's comfortable for you, that you're able to function in.
Yeah.
Because how can you serve an audience if you yourself are not served first?
Man, I played the heat. I keep saying heat dot wave. It's literally heat wave. I played heat wave recently. I don't know why I did that. Like I just got in the habit in my brain of doing that,
totally.
and I started saying it.
I feel you.
So I played heat wave recently, and that audience was so much fun. I have never had like a crowd that was just like so like fun to interact with on stage. Like they would hear a drop coming, and I would just hear like half the crowd be like, oh, I'd look out there and everyone would be like getting down. I was like, you get it.
And like that's not exactly what you'd be able to achieve if this was just regular modular music that's like super. Like most people kind of including myself, kind of resigned to like, okay, me and the modular, it's not like I'm controlling it. It's like we're kind of just talking. Yeah. And then the performances will just kind of have a conversation, right?
Right.
But you're kind of looking at it as more of you're like an orchestra director, and you want complete control over all your individual players.
Here's how I view it. So like, I write songs and then I quasi DJ those songs. Yeah. Whereas typically for most of the scene, I think and usually what I've been doing until I started down this path was creating concepts and working within concepts, as opposed to like writing like this, like here is this for you to listen to, and it will always be like this, rather than saying like here is my whole set, here's the entire set, and I'm gonna make changes as I go throughout, and it's gonna be different maybe every time. Yeah. But like everything that I do is really, really structured for this like medium of it's
like structure, but you have room to improvise. You have room to add shit here and there. You have room to make a difference. So if I had gone to like all 4 or 5 of your shows in the last few months, it's like I could have been hearing the same songs over and over again, but I'd be hearing them differently every time. Yeah, and that was the really, really fun thing about each night for me. And that's because I've never with classical music you play the same thing a million times. Same shit.
All over
the time. And over again.
Right? When you're in a band, right? Like I was in a band in college. I used to play bass guitar, and we'd go out and we had a set list. And for like 2 years, we played the same set list.
You got the bass riffs, you got the structure.
Thinking nothing of it, right? Like, oh, well, this is the same small town. It was Athens, Ohio, all right? It is the population of like Northgate, maybe less, honestly, And we still play the same thing. Yeah, I know. We still play the same thing night after night, not thinking anything of it. Fast forward like 7 years, and with all this stuff, and I think that all of us have a problem with playing the same thing twice in a way, Maybe not all of us, that's a vast generalization, but many of us have expressed to me that they feel weird playing the same thing twice, or they can't play the same thing twice, they don't know how, they can't figure out how to.
Or also it can just create complacency too. Right. And it's not something we want to get at of, being a musician. But think about all like the touring artists and the people that do have a live set, Like think about Daedalus. I mentioned Daedalus earlier. Dude plays the same live set all the time for a tour, right? Yeah. Every night. He's not gonna change it. You're right, it's tracks in here. It's the little things he does that he gets to focus on. And he gets to focus on that because he's not worrying about, is this gonna work? Is that gonna work? Is this gonna sound right? Is my delay correct? He gets to like make these little bits and little changes, and that's what I finally like found when I played that third iteration of this exact set, fourth, if you count the one back in December, that it will be the fourth iteration, is that I had this freedom to explore within the bounds that I had set a little more, knowing that like I knew how it was going to be, and I wanted to see what I could do to change it and make it better. Like it was always working on like making it just a little bit better, like making it hit a little harder, or like a cooler line or something, and also just knowing like at any given point I have many options, like we all do, That's what this whole thing is about, is having a million performance options.
So one night I might go over here and like mess with the transpose. The other night I might actually mess with like the tape delay sound on the chronoblob.
Right.
And but I still want to have the structure underlying everything, which is what this is about and this is about, and that's basically it. You know.
Well.
So yeah. Anyway.
I think.
So look inside my brain.
Thank you for giving us a very heady peek into your mind and your process. This was fascinating. I'm gonna have to cut us off here because I feel like if we don't stop, we could literally talk about this all night.
This could go on for a while.
But wow, this is crazy.
I should mention the Trident just goes through 2 low pass gates. We didn't even talk about.
Oh my god! Fuck,
we got
low pass gates. That's
2 low pass gates, man. I told you.
Cut.
It's
all
done.
right.
2 low pass gates.
All right. Over. Done.
Okay. Cool.
Jesus, that was fun.
Bye.